Hello, everyone. So lovely to see so many people in person. And thank you for having us. So my name is Åsa. I'm a love and relationship coach for women and work with high achieving women. And they attract a conscious, committed relationship in less than 12 months. And I cover a lot of different topics in there, but it tends to be a lot around the healing journey, empowerment journey, and liberation journey. And super, super excited to be here.
Amazing.
And I'm David. I'm a men's dating, relationship and intimacy coach. I help men have relationships they enjoy, because that's probably the thing we want, right? Relationships we actually enjoy. It goes a long way. Express themselves and lead lives that they actually get lit up by. It's a big part of my work because I think that, as Thea was saying, I'm going to just jump in a little fact here, that there's a Stanford study, I think it is, or Harvard, I can't remember what it is, and it said that the strongest predictor of someone's health and happiness is the strength of their relationships, romantic and friendships. And often in the wellness world, I know that relationships are left behind because, hey, it's a tricky one to talk about sometimes, right? It's uncomfortable. But actually, relationships are very, very important to your wellness.
Thank you so much. Yeah, completely agree. So how tonight's going to work, so we've got a 45-minute chat. We're basically going to take you on the journey from maybe you're just thinking about starting dating, how to navigate that, then you've met someone, you found the one, then what happens, how do you build that sort of long-lasting relationship. We've got a real mixture in the room between people who are single, in relationships, all of that. So we're going to try and cover as much as we can. We do have time for a Q&A, so anyone's got any specific questions you want to dive into, we can do that. And then we're going to do a little activity afterwards just to get you guys connecting a bit as well. So starting off with some very quick fire questions. We basically wanted to set the scene and bust some myths just to get us all on the same page to start. So my first one, which I'm fascinated to hear the answer, is: are there good men out there?
Where are they?
Yeah.
They're under the rocks. They're underneath the flowers out there.
It's like unicorns. No, it's such an important, because we might as well just start with busting some myths so that we can just not think about it and just put it out there to begin with. But I can confidently say that there are good men out there. And the reason why I wanted to touch on this one as well is that it's so easy to talk to our girlfriends. And I will speak more from the female perspective because I tend to coach women mostly. That, we're just joking over brunch, oh my God, where are they? They're, no man ever want to commit, whatever. Yeah. So that's what I didn't want to say, but actually the subconscious mind does not know, what is fact and what is fiction. So it was someone that I worked with a few years ago, and in the first session we had, she was like, me and my girls often joke about that there are no good men here. And I was like, well, this is a boundary to just guard your mind, because otherwise the work that we will do will counteract the joke conversation you have. So it's just a really, really important aspect. And of course, I'm proof. We didn't mention, but we're actually a couple as well. So it's a different dynamic in that. So yeah, I want to say I'm proof. My clients are proof, and there are good men in here. They are everywhere. So it's important to remember they are there. They want to commit to the relationship, and they can't wait to meet you.
Amazing. That makes you feel a little bit better. On the flip side, women are super confusing. We don't know what we want.
True. No, come on, it's not like that. I think ultimately there's a lot of societal stories that we need to be really careful of, that we keep telling ourselves, because as much as, like also said, it's a joke, but it just embeds into your mind. I come from a household where, and also we'll test into this, that the way that men are talked about in my house, right, by my mother and my sisters, for very good reason in many ways, is very pervasive for the family. And it's you can see how it just keeps going in through generations of men are rubbish, no, there's no women around, blah, blah, blah. It's you literally need to guard your mind like you guard your car, like you guard your house, you lock up your house every night. Really, because they're there and they're everywhere, right? But if you only have in your mind that women are too complicated, every single sign a woman gives you will show you that she's complicated. And if you go, women are really interested and they want to get to know me, you see more of what you put your attention on.
Yeah, I think that's so true, definitely. Final myth, if we're doing our quick fire, and I'm aware we could probably talk for an hour about this, so this is like a tricky one to do concisely, but attachment styles are everywhere at the moment. People are talking about them so much online, so it'd be great to just quickly touch on what they are, and then, yeah, why they're getting so much attention, and anything else you want to share about attachment styles.
Yeah, so if we're looking at attachment theory, it basically is looking at the bonding between the infant and the caregivers or parents. And then we're looking at how that influence how we relate to love, connection, and intimacy in adulthood. You have the secure attachment, you have the anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, and disorganized attachment. And some myths that we wanted to bust in here is that they're not gendered. So it's a kind of myth out there that it's only women who are anxious, which often when we've spoken to men, they feel some shame, like, oh, what's wrong with me? This is not how I should be. And not all avoidant are men. And also in there, what we wanted to quickly just, we don't have to talk about that anymore, that anxious people are not crazy people and avoidant people are not evil. We're all good people at the heart.
Yeah, no, completely. Okay, so let's start our journey then. Now we've got all on the same page. So let's say I'm ready to start dating again. What are 3 sort of unconscious beliefs that would block me from attracting love if I was starting out?
Love is dangerous. I don't deserve love. And if I get too close to someone, I'll lose myself. I'll disappear. This is a very common. I work with a lot of avoidant men, and often with them, their fear is if I get too close to somebody, then I'll lose who I am and I'll stop existing, or I'll become dependent on someone else. Right, and this shows up in a lot of ways in fear of intimacy, fear of opening up, emotionally expressing. So it's again these are the really common ones that I see. What about yourself?
One of the most common one that I see in women in particular is that we don't believe that the love we want is possible for us. So we believe that it's possible for other people because, of course, they are like these amazing human being. Why wouldn't they be in a relationship? But when we're looking at ourselves, and this is like unconsciously, this is not the conversation we have day to day with people, but unconsciously we believe they are great and I'm not enough. So this is again what happens is that if you have this some subconscious belief that what I want is not available for me, we settle for less and we stay in the wrong relationships for too long. Equally, and much of what we're talking about today do stem from childhood. It doesn't always have to be like that. It can be experiences that often have been traumatic in earlier love as well. But another one that we see is that we don't really believe that other people can meet our needs. Often because of childhood, we felt let down or disappointed, and we were like, we don't want to go through that again. But then we become really, really guarded. So this can transpire as hyper-independent, like, fuck you, I'm just going to do everything on my own. So what we really want is deep love, but then we can't receive the love that it is that we want. So as I started coaching, I was like, the $1 million question is, what do you motherfucking want? But actually, it's another question. Can you allow yourself to receive what it is that you want as well? So that's the main ones that I see, I would say.
Yeah. How do you navigate that though? If you've got all this fear, because I think that's such a powerful emotion, right, that then stops you from thinking and, as you said, like being open-minded and all of that. How do you go about navigating that?
Yeah, so this is really like a healing journey that we go on. A is to have the awareness that, okay, I feel triggered. What am I thinking and feeling? Or this is an end result that I do not want. Okay, let's pick it apart. Like, what is happening? And really, again, like I could do a whole event around this, but really what it is to look at is like, okay, well, this is an experience that I had often earlier on in my life that really influenced and shaped how I consciously and unconsciously show up. And we all have an inner protector. So when that happened, we decided, most of likely unconsciously, that we do not want to have this experience again. So our inner protector is like, I'll keep you safe. But then as adults, the danger or the fear that we used to be around, let's say, is no longer present. But we act as if the experience we had when we were younger is still the truth. So it takes to have the awareness, and this is the hard part, is to challenge it. Because what we really must do if we want a different end result is to make different choices. And that makes a lot of sense, but it is so scary. Whereas like your whole body is flaring up to be like, danger, 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 like get the fuck out of this situation. But like you've done, you have the green flags there, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And all it is like, you against yourself.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, right, this is an old experience that means that I feel really scared of. What does that version of me need? And how do I choose to show up now, knowing that what I have in front of me is not the experience that I used to have? And what is in alignment with the version of me I want to embody who is already living the reality that I see for myself? So that's really like the three strands, if you like.
Yeah, it's a great way to think about it, because I feel like I'm so guilty of projecting past relationships onto like new people and all of that, and you see one tiny thing which is like not even a big deal, but then you're like, oh, that means they're like all of these things, in the future, and all of this is going to happen. You can spiral so easily. So I think that's quite a nice way to think about it in terms of like, as you said, aligning to who you want to be, what you really want, and then sort of how you're going to embody that. I think it's a really nice way to look at it. Okay, so I'm feeling a bit more confident now. I'm ready to start dating. Feeling a bit better. So I think it's a difficult one. I was actually talking to people out here about it before we came in. It's like, when you feel like you want to start dating, everyone has this dream, or maybe this is just me, I don't know, but I'm like, oh, I'm just going to like bump into someone and maybe drop something, and like they'll pick it up, and then I'll like meet their eyes, and it'll be like this amazing meet cute, But then like in reality of the like world we live in, we're meeting people less and less in real life. There's a lot more around sort of online dating, all of these apps, and that's where a lot of us now are going. Although I think it's also sort of coming the other way now. It's like we're in this sort of transition period at the moment. But it'd be great to sort of start, talking about this. I think if we dive a little bit into online dating, we can talk a bit about how to create your dating profile. But like, what are the first steps? You're like, okay, I want to meet someone. Let's talk about online, and we'll talk about offline. How do we go about this?
Create a profile. And that sounds really simple, right? Create a profile and select some decent photos.
What's a decent photo?
Okay, first photo you want is a well-lit facial photo. The first thing you want to see is what you look like. Remove any photos that you have of you and your mates, or this super artsy photo when half your face is in the dark. Like a clear photo of your face, right? I remember seeing a friend of mine sent me some examples of some guys she'd been talking to, and one of the guys had clearly just taken a photo with like a black background with a ring light in front of him. It's perfect, because people know what you look like, right? People want to know what you look like, and what you don't realize is having a photo that's like unclear who you are and what you look like, or you're too far away from the camera or something like that. People don't go, let me look at the next one, and in the hope that they look good. They just move on. They just move on, right? We're in this swiping world. We just keep swiping. There's always another one. So like carefully crafting your dating profile is incredibly important. And I'm really talking to men in particular, because statistically we are horrendous at this. Men choose bad photos. They're not very good with aesthetics. They don't think about those gym selfies need to go. Yeah? And I'm not talking to all of you, right? Because I'm sure some of you have really good profiles. But the truth is that we need to be really mindful, because it's as if when you guys are all in your corporate world and you've got your jobs, right? Your CV is not full of mistakes. This is your CV. This is the CV for dating kind of world. This is more important than your job CV, because the person you potentially meet online could be your wife, your husband, the person you spend the rest of your life with. So if you take 30 seconds to decide on your profile pictures, you are self-sabotaging. There's something deeper that's causing you to do that. There's anxiety about creating a profile. Maybe you're afraid of rejection. Maybe you're afraid you're not good enough, so you just rush through it. You might feel the anxiety as you're creating it. And then we move on to what you're writing. You want to write about who you are, not about what you don't want. The negative profile stuff is terrible. It pictures you as a person who is negative. No one wants negative people in their life, right? And that's people's first experience of you. So you want a profile that actually speaks of who you are. And that can be difficult because we don't reflect on ourselves very well and say who we are. So sometimes, enlisting the help of a friend, someone who is creative, that you can sit down and have a conversation with, or pay someone. Like, we need to get past this thing, people, and again, I'm talking to men mainly, of like, if I ask for help, I'm in some way weak or broken, and other people will judge me, because that keeps us stuck where we are. That keeps us lonely, and that keeps us single. So it's like actually taking the time to create a decent profile goes a long way. Like, it literally is worth like it's weight in gold. Think about it. Like the person that you will be for the rest of your life, it's worth the weight in gold to take your time to do it well.
Yeah, I actually have like a no gym bro rule. No, any gym pictures I see, I'm immediately like, no.
Oh.
Just because, yeah, I know, maybe it's a bit savage. But yeah, also, but it's good advice. I'm like, God, I need to go look at my profile now. Amazing. So I think that's super helpful in terms of like, yeah, the perception we put out there. I think it's really good. I actually really love that phrase about your CV, because you pour like hours into your CV, right? Every single word, you have to fit it on one page. You really, really think about it. And I think sometimes with a Hinge profile, you're just like, that's funny. Yeah, I'll just chuck that on there, and you don't really think about it that much. So yeah, super, super helpful. If we're thinking more about this, obviously, that especially with Social Wellness Club, we're moving towards in real life, in-person connection. Like if we are like, really online dating isn't for us, we don't want to go down that route, how can we actually meet someone in real life? How can we create that meet cute?
Okay, go out with people. You're in a room of people who are interested in a topic of dating and love and relationships. Talk to them. Yeah, talk to them. Turn to the person next to you, smile, when you walk through the door, and there's a couple of people, I always watch people walking doors, because, you know, it's like, I do wish like that. And I saw many of you, like, make beelines for people to go and have a conversation. That, A+, that's what you do. Walking in a room and then just standing on the side in the corner, alone, that sets you up for failure to start with. And it sounds really harsh, but I'm in that kind of mood tonight. Because you walked in and then you've been like, oh, I'm alone, I'm awkward, I don't know what to do, and then the energy carries on through the evening. But if you walk in and you talk to the first person, you're like, hey, how you doing? How comes you're here? What are you up to? You've brought the social muscle starts flexing. So it keeps going throughout the evening. So it's like get involved in things like this. Like community is the future. Community is the future of making friends and making relationships. It is the future. It's already happening. Like this is testament to it. So it's like get involved in life. What do you love doing? What are you interested in? Get involved in it. Like don't sit on the sidelines. Life is not a spectator sport, right? People love to be spectators and judging and watching and critiquing other people. That's not life. Life's on the pitch. You get on the pitch and you play. You get involved. So like I'm calling you forward to do the things you love. Like I get you have fear, I get you have anxiety. We all do. I'm nervous as fuck sitting here. My heart beating, my hand is shaking, but I'm still here. You can move past it. So it's like get involved in life.
And what we really want to do is to really embody the life that we love. And that can sound so cliche, but what's really interesting is before being a coach, I was a matchmaker. And I spoke to thousands and thousands of singles, basically like doing interviews to, you know, I'm not going to go into that, but, and I can't tell you how many people, it's like, oh, so who are you looking for? Long brief. I want them to be about this and I want them to be about that. And, you know, like, well, if they talk about travel, don't talk about Tenerife. I want them to be like really like into da 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 da. And then I was like, cool, making notes. That's great. Love the clarity. Like, and tell me about you. You know, yeah, like there was a new coffee shop that opened around the corner. That was nice. And you see, like, it's such an imbalance in the match. Like, we want often this person who's embodied in this thing, but it's like, are we a match for that? And as you were saying, like, go out and go outside, you know, whatever you're into, there is a community for that. And you start with your own interest and be like, you know, where are people meeting up? Like, you know, who is about life? And I spoke to someone earlier, and you never know, because it can be I know that time is very precious. We must try to navigate dating and love with an open heart and be in awe of what could happen. Because we often go like, nope, that's not for me. Nope, that's not the event. So I spoke to someone as a coach a couple of weeks ago, and she said, right, I am dating more because I want to meet my person. So I saw this offline dating event. I was like, great. She was like, then I call up the organizer, and I was like, And she said, then I asked them lots of questions, and basically it was just going to be 5 men there. And she was like, I decided not to go. And I was like, I respect that you respect your time, but how do you know? Like, how do you know that one of those 5 guys is not your guy? Or how do you know that on the way to the event, as you're getting a coffee at Starbucks, you start talking to someone in the queue. Like, how do you know? So we often have this, it's like, as I say in my coaching all the time, like, when did you become God? Like, how do you know all these answers, So absolutely, like, be respect to your time boundaries. Your time is precious, but my message is trying to navigate dating with an open mind rather than like, oh, I know how this goes. I've seen this script before. Because then, you're most likely creating the same end result that you don't want either. And just one thing on the online dating as well, like, make your profile, like, write something that makes it easy for someone to make a conversation. That's the best way to send a message. Don't do, hey, how's your week? And just whatever they have written, like, even if there's like a picture and they're sailing, they're like, oh my God, where was that trip to? Like, don't say anything that feels inauthentic just to, like, do pickup lines or whatever. But it's such an easy way. Like, just find something in their profile that they like, and don't be afraid of sharing what it is that you want. Someone that I work with, she was like, no, I can't put in my profile that I want a committed relation and I want to have a baby. I was like, why? She was like, because I will be too much for my man. I was like, well, why don't we try it? And of course, like, she's now in a relationship. But you see, that's the, like, limiting belief that is in there. So don't be, and if they think you too much, well, they're not your person. If you think you too much by saying I want a baby, just wait until the first fucking month, and then everything will be. We have a 6 months old at home, and so that's very important. Get clear on what you want. Don't be afraid to really own it unapologetically, but also be about life. Like, the one you're calling in, what type of partner do they need? Like, you want to be a match for that by being yourself, not trying to be someone you're not.
And I'll add one quick thing on my dating thing, right? As also said, make your profile like it's the equivalent of like shareable on Instagram. It's like how easy for someone to ask you a question or talk to you about something. Now, be willing to make the first move, all of you, irrespective of gender, right? Be willing to make the first move, full stop. Rejection doesn't exist. I can talk about that later, but it really doesn't. It's all in your head. It's all imagined, it's all assumed. And just liking someone's photo on Hinge is not good enough. You need to like and comment, ask a question, make a statement, something that's intriguing about the photo that you notice, you pay attention. Like, the key is being proactive, right? You need to be proactive. I'm proactive as fuck when I was dating, right? Everyone knew me when I dated. I was proactive as fuck. Right?
He was very smooth.
Right? Don't just sit around waiting for somebody. That's passive. You don't wait for someone to call you for a job, right? You don't wait for your bank to give you money. Like, you actively move towards it. So be active.
Yeah, that's really making me think now. I'm definitely like a lurker. I'll just like and then do nothing.
It's like from the side. Like,
yeah.
I'm so into this dating.
I know.
Oh, if he likes me, he'll say something too. But the same fear that you have about rejection or judgment or looking stupid, he's got it too. Remember that, men and women, all of you have fear, right? It is the basis of most of your actions, especially in the world of dating. Men have fear. Men have a shit ton of fear, and women have a shit ton of fear as well. Just take that in mind, right? When you see people doing certain things, because often it's not malicious, it's not because they don't care about you, it's not that they don't love you, it's not that you're meaningless to them, it's just their shit's scared to. Their fear just comes out in a way that may look different to yours.
Okay, so I've got my confidence now. I've sent the message. I'm on a first date. What do I do now? I'm like terrified. I'm sat there. What do I say? Because I think there's the whole thing about a first date where you want to find someone who's aligned to you, right? You really want to find someone who matches your values and all of that, but you don't want to feel like you're interviewing someone.
Yeah.
And there's like a line, how intense you go. Because you don't want to scare them off, but you don't want to not like go deep enough, and then you see them again and you're like, well, who is this guy? Or, whatever.
Yes, I'm just going to say this first thing. A really good tip here is to, instead of asking questions like it feels like it's an interview, you own unapologetically who you are, what you're about, the journey that you've been on, and what you would love to create, because this will naturally give the cues to the other person where it's like, oh, there's something that I would love to do too. Or you say something that's like, oh, that's not like, oh, how did you get into that, whatever. But it's really good, instead of having this like asking lots of questions, just really owning, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is what I would love to create. And it creates a kind of natural flow of conversation with the person that is for you. It might be someone that looked super puzzled. I give you an example, for example, when I was single and I was really on a sexual liberation journey, I was quite open with like, yeah, I go to sex clubs. Because there could be some people's like, oh my God, like that, well, that's so weird. Well, you know, I never had that experience, but there could be. And then I would know like, oh, well, that's not my person. They're entitled to their, experience and how they see the world. But my type of person would be like, oh, you know, have you gone? Why on earth would you love to go? I would never want to do it, but, you know, kudos to you, whatever. You just basically see how the person is showing up in that. So that's just a very like authentic way rather than just play a game by asking you lots of questions. And then if you pick right, then I'll lean into my vulnerability. It's actually just lean into that first and see how they follow.
Yeah, I think it's also being like confident, isn't it, to like offer up a bit more about yourself? Because I think the conversation can only grow so much from what you offer. If you're giving really short answers and expecting someone else to like elaborate massively, then you're not giving them that much to go off in a conversation. If someone's like, "How was your day?" and you're like, "Yeah, good," and they're like, "Okay," but if you're like, "Yeah, I did this, and all of these things," then they have so much more to go off to like build a conversation. Then you're just naturally going to make way more links.
Can I jump in?
Absolutely, yeah.
So first of all, like you've got to be curious and leave judgment at the door. We're too judgmental. We're always looking for ways to judge people and who they are based on little things they say or things they don't say and the way of being. Leave judgment at the door. You're going to a date and it's not, is this person the one? Notice that energy in you if you have that. If you have this kind of like, oh my God, this person could be one, you've already projected forward your marriage, the 3 kids you're going to have, the yacht you're going to buy and all these things. And I don't joke because, like I said, I coach people, right? Notice that because then you're already falling in love with the fantasy, not in love with the person that's in front of you. It's a very important thing to do, and I saw your friend looking that way. But it's a very important, no shame, like it happens, right? It's a really important thing to notice, right? Because it leads to massive disappointment really far down the line because the person isn't going to be the fantasy. Also, it's like, as also said, like, you know, our first ever conversation, we talked about the various sex clubs that we've been to, what they were like. I was telling her about all these different retreats around sexuality and tantra that she should visit. Be the person you are. Like, be the person you are, and you will gravitate towards the sort of people that you want to meet. I've been on over 100 first dates, and I'm very sure I have. I've been on a lot of dates. And what I learned was that if I'm me, the date can go on for hours and hours and hours, right? If I'm not me, it's awkward and it's stodgy and it's weird. So the key is like, bring who you are and be willing to be curious. And I prefer to say, talking statements and stories. Tell stories. Stories have colour. Stories have depth. Stories give details that are weird and strange and all those sorts of things, right? Because if you just ask questions, it does become like an interview. And you know, the standard stuff like, what do you do for a living? Where do you live? Like, who fucking cares, man? Like, you can find that stuff out later. But what you really want to know is this person has like, they really vibe with you and there's an alignment between you two people. Like, if they're an investment banker or they're a software tester or whatever, really does that matter that much? Like, I've been on dates, but not until the second date, they were like, what do you do for a living? I'm like, oh, this is back in the day. I was a software tester, and I'm like, wow, you don't seem like you work in software. And I'm like, I know. But it's like, if we start with the boring stuff, we're setting ourselves up for boredom. Someone appears to be judgmental off the bat. For me, it's like, goodbye, all right, I'm out.
What are the signs they'd be being judgmental?
You can hear people who are judgmental always have opinions about how things should be and how people look and so forth. Like, and there's not like a comedy in it, but there's like a judgment. It's like, boom, that's how it is. That's wrong. That's bad. Like, you know, especially if they're not willing to kind of discuss or debate, you know, that could be a real issue. You know, for me, for instance, like sexual openness is really important. It was really important to me, so I talk about it, you know. If someone's like, I once went on a date with someone and I told them that I'd been to the Kit Kat Club in Germany and it was like a BDSM thing, and she looked at me disgusted and it just held my nerve. I didn't react to her. I was like, I see that's uncomfortable for you. And I sat there for about 25 seconds in silence. And then she was like, what was it like? I've heard about places like this. But for me, it was already done. It's like, okay, yeah, it was too much for you. So like judgmentalness, communication is an important one, but like remember, we're all basically children when it comes to communicating. There's that Barclays advert. Has anyone seen it? The Barclays where
they jump in puddles.
And they're jumping in puddles and they're trying to split bills.
Yeah,
that's basically us when it comes to communication, because our parents can't communicate, the people around us don't communicate very well, and we don't learn to communicate because it's something we need to learn how to do. I definitely had to. My habit was shutting down. So, how do people communicate? Does that work for you, the way they communicate? Can someone take feedback? That can also be like a red flag for me. They can't. I think for me, there's a lot of just like feeling the person in the moment, but also being really aware of how you're projecting onto people your own story about men and women and dating. Especially the dating one. Like, no one wants anything serious, just because you ask them if they want a relationship, and they're like, well, if I meet the right person, like, that means they're not serious. No, it doesn't. They're just saying, if I meet the right person. So we've got to be mindful of ourselves. That, are we red flags? What? That's a better question. Where are your red flags? And where do people look at you and go, well, that's a red flag? Take that home, write that down. That's a good journal question. Because we're all about like, other people, and this and that. And we act like we're fucking perfect. Like, seriously, look at yourself. Like, I had some very obvious red flags for many years. I didn't communicate very well. I was really just a fuck boy. Like, I was great at casual. I was very charming. But the second, anything serious got mentioned, I'm withdrawing. These are my own red flags. So, look at yourself. Are you an over communicator? Do you emotionally dump on people? Are you constantly projecting whether people actually care about you or not, and continually testing it? Yeah? If they love me, they do this, and if they love me, they do that. Look at yourself, because this is where the work starts for us. We're always looking outside for these things. It's like, look at yourself. How are you a red flag?
Yeah.
Being rude to staff, that's one thing that's a big red flag to me. Being rude to people who are working, in bars and restaurants. Anyone who's rude or short-sighted, you're out for me, because there's no need to be that way. We're not better than anybody else.
The challenge that can be, and obviously we're trying to answer everything super snappy, so it's we can go home, but most of the things are very nuanced. It's very rarely black or white. So for example, and this is why, again, we must of course check in with ourselves. How much am I willing to make excuses for this person? If I give an example, it might be one person who is late for a date, and you might be like, this is a red flag because that means X, Y, Z. But actually, they are the most committed person. They genuinely got stuck in traffic. Where another person who couldn't give a fuck, they were also late. So it's also very important to, as we're getting to know someone, to get to know that person for who they are. Because a lot of people have a lot of thoughts and feelings about your relationship when actually they have no idea, because they come from their wounded place. Does that make sense? So even our best friend who wants nothing but the best for us, unless they're trained to hold space, that they are so aware of their own story, they can completely be in your experience. We will project, as you mentioned. So it's very important. This is why I'm so big on slowing down in dating, because you don't know, it's not to test the person, but you don't really know until you've met someone over a period of time. So can we give someone the benefit of the doubt, unless someone would do something explicitly that you're like, this is an absolute no for me, right? But sometimes it's these nuanced things that we don't know about the person until we get to know them over a period of time.
Conscious of time, but just quickly, what is that period of time? What's
well, for example, if it's someone that's late for a date and they do show up and you do have a good time, then the red flag might be to you, well, they were late. That means that this is now going to do that. You're always late. But you're the most... Oh.
I was just thinking, was I late for the first date? And I was like, I couldn't have been.
No, because you live there. But, so of course it's not, some people take it to extreme, they've dated this person for 6 months and hoping they're going to change. But I'm talking maybe 1, 2, 3 dates. And the first thing that, we ask ourselves is is there enough here to go on a second date? But red flags really, we're speaking about it because the media is speaking about red flags and green flags and all these things. But I'm not too much of a fan of it because it just creates kind of these like, negative energies around certain things and how things are. When really what you want to get clear on, what are your fuck no's? I'm not okay with this behavior. I'm no longer willing to date someone who doesn't want a committed relationship. I want children, they don't. Sex clubs is a non-negotiable, whatever that might be, right? Like that should be, you like, don't worry about the red flags. You just need to be very clear on what you are no longer willing to entertain and what you're ready to invite in. That should be your guide.
Yeah, that's a nice simple way to do it as well, isn't it? Have your non-negotiables. If that line's crossed and it's a no, then it's just like clear.
And then we can talk about it. Like, it's even, you introduce a really beautiful structure that we'll talk more about towards the end around talking about your relationship once a month. So you brought in this beautiful structure, and then we were going to do it on a Sunday, and then you were like, oh, I'm meeting with the boys on Sunday. And I'm thinking, so that could have been me going like, oh, he's not taking action matching words, girls. Like, and what are we? A no to that. But instead of, because I was like, what do I know about this person? Well, he's consistent. Like, this is a little bit out of character for him. But instead of assuming what that means, I had a conversation. Like I was like, you brought in this beautiful structure and then you double booked yourself on a day. And I feel like you're not respecting my time. And instead of me now going away and having these thoughts and feelings and creating this story, I'm just going to bring it out to you so you can be like, yeah, actually, I've been thinking about it and I'm not really into commitment. Or as you did, you can be like, oh, I'm so sorry. That is complete oversight. Like, this is really important for me. Let's do it next Sunday. And if he didn't rock up for that Sunday, then I might be like, okay, this is now a little bit of a pattern, what's happening. But conscious communication is a bridge. Give them the benefit of the doubt, have a conversation, if anything, and see if you like what they say.
Yeah, okay, cool. We've got about 10 minutes. I'm just conscious of time. So let's do maybe 2 quick fire green flags, and we can move on.
Willingness to grow.
Nice. Short and sweet.
I guess it's really personal, but I think communication. And I guess there's a sweet spot for us all that's like, there's not enough communication. For some of us, that's a problem for us. And for some of us, too much communication is a problem, right? So it's finding like what your sweet spot is and just like, looking for that in somebody and having a level of patience and understanding and compassion and empathy, because people have fear too. But yeah, communication.
Yeah, no, it's such a key one. Okay, so let's dive in. And anything like we do a bit quicker now, we can like go into a bit more detail in the Q&A if anyone fancies it. But ghosting and love bombing are like thrown around all the time, right? 2 super common experiences as well that people experience. So let's just quickly do like, what is ghosting? Because I know we were talking before, there's like levels to it. I think some people like have different meanings for it. And then how do you handle it when it happens?
So I guess ghosting is where someone cuts communication or contact without prior warning or saying anything. Now, I know some people who believe that ghosting is if someone matches with you and then they don't message you back, or they send you one message and they don't reply. Some people take that as ghosting. And on the very extreme end, and I'd say this not because I've made up, because I know something's happened to you, you can be in a relationship for someone for 2 years and then you come home and they've taken all their stuff and they've left and you can't find where they are in the world. Yeah, that's an extreme end. Now, I'd say that first end, I'd say that's not ghosting. That's what someone has to reply to. No big deal. I don't really take ghosting, in my opinion, until like you've gone on a date with somebody. Ghosting to me also isn't that. I went on a date with someone and they did not message me back. They didn't message me afterwards, but I also didn't message them. Yeah? That's you setting yourself up. That's you setting yourself up to be angry and frustrated. I got ghosted. My first question to the coach to you is, did you message them? No, they should have messaged me. Big problem. I think the thing to remember is, it's the meaning that you give it.
Yeah.
You might not be conscious of it, but there's a meaning. Someone ghosted me, and then what do you make that mean about you? That you're going to be alone forever, that you're worthless and all these things. And it doesn't have that meaning. That person is not telling you that thing by their action. They have their own stuff going on, which a lot of the time with ghosting is people's inability to deal with conflict. Because what's one of the things we don't get taught how to deal with very well in our family systems? Conflict.
Yeah, okay, no, that's super helpful. And I think that's a nice way to frame it as well, definitely. So the second one is love bombing. What does this mean and how can you spot a love bomber?
So love bombing is when like someone like showers you attention, love and affection and gifts and communication and stuff like I'm not that keen on this love bombing thing because what I've seen from middle school talks about this is like our conversations in our front room in the evening, basically. Being able to love bombing, I see a lot of people do love bombing because there's had 2 guys in my group program recently and they talked about love bombing, they do it. And they said what it is for them is that they meet someone and they're like really, really on it. Like, oh my God, I really like this person's amazing, this person's amazing. They're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then they get with the person and then there's this like, oh, I can relax. We're together now, I've got them. Yeah, and then there's a relaxing back. And then they kind of let things sleep. And I was like, oh, do you realise how toxic and harmful that is to people and how that makes people feel dropped and worthless and so forth? And I'm like, but we're together now. And I was like, no, but can you imagine that some experience isn't that? They're like, yeah, that's true. Because we think it's malicious, don't we? We think someone's a narcissist. Narcissist is like the thing everyone's talking about. But actually, it's just someone who was doing their thing, right? They're into you and then they relax because they feel like it's come together and it's solid. So in terms of spotting someone who's love bombing, I guess like I'm avoidant, so I just have to announce that first of all before I speak about this. It's like anyone who, for me, is love bombing is like where there's like this constant communication. It's never breaking. There's never a break. It's like constantly like da-da-da-da, and they're like telling you everything, and they want to, because they're trying to feel connected. That's what love bombers often are doing. They just want to feel connected, right? It goes for both sides of the kind of attachment. So some of it is just to kind of someone who's trying to speed things up and make things fast. So you need to be really mindful of like allowing things to slow down, like also said, because that's a way to kind of spot it. Like, oh, this is moving really fast. And it might feel really good to you because you want to be in connection, but actually it's to slow it down. That's the biggest way to kind of notice it. It is this like speed. It's the speed at which things go. So like really pay attention to that and how it feels for you, and be like, let me slow that down.
Yeah, definitely. So let's say I've not been ghosted, I've not been love bombed, I found some green flags. I've met my one. Now what do I do?
Let me just say something really quickly. Dating is a process of rejection. You're going to get rejected a lot. That's how dating works. Don't expect to like have 10 dates and find the one. Like come back and feel upset when you've gone 100 dates or so. Like seriously, this dating, it's like a dating thing, right? You date, you do lots of it. Like get out of your head that this next person should be the one, or it should be easy. That should be easy thing is really making it painful for you.
And when we've done the 100 dates and we are now in a committed relationship, true story, something that's really important is to continue to show up for each other. As you mentioned, sometimes it can be like we put the emphasis on the dating to meet our person, and it's like, ta-da, it's official status in relationship and so forth. But actually, it's really important to continue to date each other. I heard a quote years and years, way before I do what I do now, and it was a man that was speaking about his wife, and they'd been married for like 50 years or something, and he was saying, I've been so lucky to have met all the versions of my woman. And I was like, oh my God, I almost feel a little bit teary thinking about it, because you grow. Like I'm not the same person that was, especially not after having a child, but with or without motherhood, I'm like always looking to evolve and grow. And so are you, so are you. That's why you're here. So most likely will your person be. So it's never stopping dating each other. Be interested, be curious. It's so easy. And even as trained people in this, I can still do that, where it's like, oh, here we go. Now he's going to say this thing. Whereas again, like, can we just be deeply present to each other? It's not possible all the time because life happens and we have other things. But it's like creating the time for connection, whether you want to call it date night or, without distraction, I guess, like put the phone away. Like everyone who says, scrolling on the phone and going like, oh, I'm still listening, they're lying. Where it's like, just, get to know each other and like feel each other, like physically, but like emotionally as well. Be interested in the other person. That is some key aspects that's really important. And also you can, I remember the first time I heard about scheduling sex and I was like, who does that? That's so unsexy. It's like my favorite thing. Because, it's like in all other aspects of our life, what we find important, what is important to us, we make time for. But in love, it should just, because of Hollywood and Disney, it should just magically appear. And sometimes it does, especially in the beginning. But if we want, like as they say, love is not enough. is to create like a structure, which maybe, you know, feel free to use another word, like I love structure. But, you know, having, for example, like every month we sit down and we speak, you know, we blocked out 2 hours to talk about our relationship, like what's going really well, how was the month, what are we loving, what would we like to change, how can we support each other better, what did I do that made you feel most loved, and so forth. So we're always having an ongoing conversation, but also not being afraid of having hard conversations.
Yeah.
You know, there's again like the conflict that no one tells us how to do.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I used to do this thing called a life dinner, which my ex used to hate with a passion. But I would sit him down like, yeah, once a month to like go out for dinner and have all these questions, and he'd be like, for him that was like way too much, but for me it was like so helpful to do the check-in. So yeah, different things work for different people. But we're at time now, pretty much. But I just want to do like last sort of question, which is there's a lot of things about relationships about like it can feel like another full-time job, you know, like you get out what you put in and all this, like we all understand that a relationship is work, but it's like how much work should it be and how do you know when it's too much work and actually potentially, you know, it's time to let it go?
Yeah. I personally used to have this idea in my head that a relationship should be easy. I should get in a relationship and then it should just be effortless after that point. So if it wasn't effortless, I would have been off the relationship. So I spent my 20s kind of just being in and out of relationships. They usually last about 9 months to a year. Relationships take work. And I think there's an attachment style piece to this I think is important. So anxious people will often over give to relationships because they want to feel connection, they want to feel connected, they want to feel safe. Avoidant people will under give to relationships, right? This is why attachment piece is really important. So if you're an avoidant person, you need to work harder. You need to do more and lean more into love, right? As a rule of thumb, it's not going to be exactly the same for everyone. And as an anxious person, I think the key is also for them, from my point of view, is to build this piece of self, like this self independence, this self personhood, this being okay with being alone, right? Because to be in relationship with someone, you need to also be comfortable being alone, because it's an important dynamic of autonomy and togetherness that a relationship has. So you've got to look at that, like what's your habit? If your habit is always giving too much, then maybe you need to scale back. If your habit, you can see where you didn't try enough, and you need to kind of lean into that.
And I also always talk about like everything is in seasons. You know, relationship is in season, business is in season. So it's also acknowledging that at the time, for example, we might be in a season of growth, or that might be feeling really challenging. But to your point, if we feel like all we do is challenging, you know, then we might also, well, we should have a conversation about that. Like, hey, I'm feeling that all we're talking about is the challenges. Like even one of our coaches spoke to us a couple of years ago. She was like, just stop being each other's therapist, you know, because in the world of growth, it's very easy that all we want to go do is growth and enlightenment, which is great, but not all the time. We must also live in this human experience. So if we feel like it's actually like a long season of change and challenge, it's also to have a conversation about that. How can we lighten the fuck up? You know, this is the thing. And sometimes we must realize that every couple, us included, have something we can't see eye to eye with. If it's something that is a non-negotiable, that's a different thing. But every relationship have something. So it's again certain things you might not be able to see eye to eye, and you have to let it go. You have to try to understand the other person's reality and so forth, but just admit that, you know, let's agree to disagree, I think that they say. But what would we love to do? Like, let's inject, like, let's travel. Do you remember when we used to go out for dinner? Like, when was the last time we had sex? When was the last time we were just naked without having intercourse? Like, whatever it is, laugh together. You know, there are so many things that we could do. So let's have a conversation to consciously change the direction if we feel like it's too much hard work. But it depends on where we started as well. Like we've been on a massive healing journey together, like anxious avoidant, classic dynamic. So the first couple of years was like quite tough, not all the time. You know, it was a lot of enjoyable experiences as well. But I can't remember, I think it was John Wineland, probably you listened to it in the front room, and he was like, people have forgotten about patience. It's like, why don't you go and heal your wounds within 2 months? Well, sometimes, you know, it depends on where we started. So this is why I personally really love the willingness to grow, together over a period of time. But don't forget to like have fun and enjoy each other. Like don't be each other's therapist, have a therapist, or coach. Yeah.